I am 22-year-old girl. I was looking on Craigslist to buy a couch for my new apartment a month ago. I found something I saw it seems like a good deal. From the pictures the couch seemed to be in great shape. The seller wanted to be taunted I could by email. Just email was Mexican Poppy 666 of Hotmail. I felt that email was a bit off-putting, but I still went ahead and emailed them in my offer. He responded within 5 minutes accepting me offer and asking for my address. I honestly am Southern comfortable with the Jets game. I did not want a stranger coming to my house. I suggested that I just come to his house to pick it up, but you continually insist that he come to my house. Eventually, I stopped responding, and the day later he emailed me again giving me his address. I didn't know if I go at that point, but it seemed like a skill. Almost too good to be true. And according to his address, Begin lived too far. So I got my van and drove over to the seller's house. I immediately noticed that the house was a bit smaller than all the other houses on the block. When I rang a bell, hey Facebook capture into the door. He gave me a huge smile and invited me in. I was immediately feeling unusual. He read me into his living room, and I saw the couch. Immediately, I saw a stuff mark and small tears, and the couch smiled and offered to lower the price. I told him I'm not interested. And here's where things started getting creepy. As I was making my way out of the house, he put his hand on my shoulder and offered to give it to me for free if I was willing to quote-unquote give something to him, and got back into my car. I didn't even look up out the window. I just drove away from there quickly. But it doesn't end there. That came night. I was weighing in my dog watching TV when I thought I heard somebody stomping up the steps of my porch. I muted the TV and was able to clearly hear this if somebody's fiddling with my front door knob. I jumped out of my bed and tipped it over to the front door to look through the people. But whoever was already gone and closing. That was when I grabbed the phone and dialed 911 soon after I heard the sound of somebody fiddling like a doorknob to the back door of the apartment. I yelled to whoever it was that the police were on your way, and after that I heard the sound of the gate opening and closing again. They were done. This is a month ago, and nothing happened since, but I still can't sleep at night. I'm 99% sure it was the name that was telling the couch too much to follow me home, and I'm still trying to find a new apartment. Number 2. I was looking for a car to buy for my son's 18th birthday. I was searching all the typical car websites. Cars.com, eBay Motors. Hey, we're all overpriced as expected. Craig was originally pleased to find an actual deal. About a week into my search, I found an '03 Toyota Camry. It had 67 1,000 miles. No accidents. No damage in good conditions. Only 3,500. We can get the skill for such a reliable car with such a low mileage. The seller lived about 10 miles from me, which was a reasonable drive when looking for a car. I gave him a call to set up a time to come check it out. The man sounded normal on the phone. Hey, absolutely no problems with the car. She introduced himself as Bob. I brought her on 3,500 in cash, even though I planned them wiggling down the price as much as possible. I pulled up the dirt roads about property about 15 minutes early. It was a tiny little house within using size property, only because there was a bit far from the nearest neighbors. The garage was open, so I walked over to see if anybody was inside. But except for an unusual amount of car parks, it was empty. The car was nowhere in sight. The only car in the property was an old pickup truck. I went over to the front door to check the house numbers. It was the right address. The doorbell button was missing, so I knocked on the front door. I knocked for exactly 5 minutes before deciding to give the man a call. So I dialed his number and I heard the sound of a cell phone ringing from inside the house. I was extremely concerned at this point. Now, I knew I had the right house. I didn't understand why she was home while he wasn't answering. I decided I had to take a 2-1 at the windows to see if anybody was inside. Can you see the glass? I couldn't really see much. There's those pretty dark inside the house. I saw a very old-fashioned dining room set. But across from that I saw somebody standing at the back door of the house, staring outside. I figured I must have been Bob. So I knocked on the window. The wide open yards. It wasn't a rural area. I simply walked around the house to the backyard. I didn't understand how he couldn't hear me. When I got to the back door, I need a shocking human being. I ran straight back away, came and backed my car. I looked up one last time before driving off. The blinds to the window I had peeked into. I've been shut. But I can see 2 of your blinds been open, no thanks. All the car parks, the fact that there's no Toyota the Camry attached near me, human being. The fact that there was no car there. Lead me to believe that that man wasn't planning on showing me anything. And that also leads to the disturbing thought that, hey, Facebook staring out that man's back door. Number 1. I was looking to buy the iPhone 5 about a year ago. I found a guy in Craigslist. She was selling his for $200. He claimed it was in mint condition and that you wanted to upgrade to the 5 Street. I didn't know much about how to go about texting a phone, make sure everything works. So I brought my little brother along who knew a lot more than I did. We met halfway at the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. They're like 10 o'clock at night. 2 large, intimidating guys stepped out of a black Honda Civic and walked over to us, pulled out the phone, and showed it to me. Do not scratch on it. My brother took out my SIM card and popped it into this new phone. He did some texting and told me that it worked. The guy then asked for $250, even though he originally had for $200. I lied and told him I only brought $200. You seemed to be unhappy with it. I did have $250, but I didn't want to spend more than his original asking price. I kind of figured it was a way of making striving haggle down the price. I handed the guy to $250 and his buddy got back in their car. We got back into my car and I tested out the new phone by calling my girlfriend. I said, texting things around for about 5 minutes. My brother commented on the fact that the 2 guys hadn't left yet either. But I didn't really care. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. My brother then commented that the 2 guys started their car just as I had. I didn't find it too weird. I drove down the turnpike and eventually stopped by the red light. That's when I noticed the black pull up right behind us in my rearview mirror. They followed and closed on my pill to pull over. But there's no way I was going to do that. I knew those guys were looking for trouble. It's actually the point where I was trying to lose them and started driving dangerously. If they needed something, they would call or at least punch their horn. But they were looking for some kind of trouble. I tried something risky to lose them. I did an intersection. The light had just turned red. I floored it before any of the cars will begin to pass. My brother shouted at me, calling me stupid and crazy. But it worked. They didn't follow. We got home after the actual long drive. My heart was still racing from the intensity of the situation. I was just happy I got a working phone for such a low court. Later that night, I was playing around with the phone trying to set something up before going to bed. Completely stopped. The black 100 Civic was parked across the street. I can only assume the 2 guys were already halfway to our front door. I immediately woke up my dad and explained everything as quickly as possible. He got up, grabbed the baseball bag, and crushed behind the front door clean at the front door. My dad screamed at them to go away. One of the guys went out, happened to be a police officer. Here's the part that still scares me to this day. My dad ran away from the door, and we all listen. I have to say this was the series gave my wife, but it was also the best I've ever felt to my entire life.